My name is Kendra, 37 years old, and I'm sitting in my lawyer's office holding documents that proved my sister tried to steal everything from me. 3 weeks ago, right after we buried my husband Marcus, my younger sister Serena came to my house with her 15-year-old son Dylan. She calmly announced that Dylan was actually Marcus's child and pulled out a will, leaving 60% of everything to him. The smile on her face was so confident, so sure of victory. Before I reveal how one sentence destroyed my sister's elaborate scheme, tell me where you're watching from. If you've ever been betrayed by family, hit subscribe. Now let me tell you how greed and lies always find their way to justice. 18 years ago, I met Marcus at St. Mary's Hospital in downtown Chicago. I was a cardiac nurse working the night shift, and he was the new cardiothoracic surgeon everyone was talking about. Not because he was handsome, though he certainly was, with those deep brown eyes and gentle smile, but because he had this way of treating everyone from janitors to chief administrators with the same genuine respect. Our first real conversation happened over a dying coffee machine at 3 in the morning. I was exhausted after losing a patient, and Marcus found me trying to coax the ancient machine into producing something drinkable. "Let me," he said, and proceeded to hit the machine in exactly the right spot. Coffee poured out perfectly. "You've done that before," I observed. "Medical school teaches you many things, but fixing broken coffee machines might be the most useful skill," he replied with that smile that would later make me fall completely in love with him. We dated for 2 years before he proposed in that same break room by that same coffee machine at 3 in the morning. He said he wanted to propose where everything began, where he learned that angels wore scrubs instead of wings. It was corny and perfect and absolutely Marcus. We married in a small ceremony with just family and close friends. My younger sister Serena was my maid of honor, though even then she complained that the dress I chose made her look frumpy. She was 22, then beautiful in that careless way young people are, but always wanting more, always comparing herself to others and finding herself lacking. The first 5 years of our marriage were everything I'd dreamed of. Marcus's practice grew, and I continued working part-time, but we both wanted children desperately. That's when our perfect life hit its first real obstacle. Month after month, the pregnancy tests came back negative. We tried everything naturally for 2 years before moving to fertility treatments. 3 rounds of IVF, 3 devastating failures. Each one cost us $15,000 and a piece of our hearts. After the 3rd failed attempt, I found Marcus crying in our bedroom, something I'd only seen once before when his father died. "I'm so sorry," he kept saying. "This is my fault. The doctors said my sperm count is fine, but maybe they're wrong." "It's nobody's fault," I told him, holding him tight. "We have each other. That's enough." "You're enough for me," he said, looking into my eyes. "You'll always be enough." We stopped trying after that, pouring our parental love into our nieces, nephews, and especially into Dylan, my sister's son. Serena had gotten pregnant at 22, just a year after our wedding. She never told anyone who the father was, just showed up at our door one night, 7 months pregnant, and crying. "I messed up," she said. "He doesn't want anything to do with it." "With the baby," I corrected gently. "Not it, the baby." "I can't do this alone," she sobbed. Marcus and I took her in without hesitation. We converted our hoped-for nursery into a bedroom for her. Marcus drove her to every prenatal appointment, bought baby furniture, and even attended Lamaze classes with her when she had no one else. When Dylan was born, Marcus was the 2nd person to hold him after Serena. I watched my husband cradle that tiny baby with such tenderness, and my heart broke a little more, knowing we'd never have our own. But it also swelled with love, seeing how naturally paternal he was. "We'll help you raise him," Marcus promised Serena. "He'll have everything he needs," and we did. For 15 years we were Dylan's secondary parents. Marcus taught him to ride a bike in our driveway, attended every baseball game, helped with science projects, and never missed a school play. When Dylan was 8 and asked why he didn't have a dad like other kids, Marcus knelt down and said, "You have something even better. You have an uncle who chose to love you." Serena lived with us for the first 3 years of Dylan's life, then got her own apartment 10 minutes away. She worked various jobs, retail, administrative assistant, real estate, never staying anywhere long, always looking for something better. We helped financially whenever she needed it, which was often. The dynamic worked for years. Serena would drop Dylan off when she had dates or trips or just needed a break. Sometimes those breaks lasted weeks. Dylan had his own room at our house clothes in the closet, a spot at our dinner table. Marcus would light up whenever Dylan walked through the door. But things started shifting about 2 years ago. Serena began asking strange questions about our finances. She'd make comments at family dinners about Marcus's success, about how much doctors made about our investment portfolio. "You guys must have quite the nest egg," she said one Thanksgiving, her third glass of wine making her bold. "We're comfortable," Marcus replied diplomatically. "More than comfortable," she pressed. "This house alone must be worth 800,000. "Why the sudden interest in our finances?" I asked. "Just making conversation," she said, but her eyes were calculating something I couldn't understand then. She also became fixated on our lack of a will, or what she assumed was a lack of one. "You really should have something formal," she'd say. "What if something happens? You need to make sure Dylan is taken care of." "Dylan will always be taken care of," Marcus assured her. "You know that." "But officially," she pushed, "legal documents. You can't just assume things will work out." Marcus did create a will 2 years ago, but he was oddly secretive about it. He met with his lawyer alone, had it notarized without me present, and kept it in his office safe rather than our home safe. "Don't you trust me?" I asked, hurt by the secrecy. "I trust you completely," he said, kissing my forehead. "I just want to handle the morbid stuff myself. You shouldn't have to think about me dying." "But what does it say?" "Everything goes to you, of course, and provisions for family. It's standard stuff, my love. Boring legal language that means I love you and want you protected." I let it go because that was Marcus always trying to shield me from unpleasantness. I wish now I'd pushed harder, asked more questions. Maybe I would have seen what was coming. 8 months ago, our world shattered. With 2 words, pancreatic cancer. Marcus had been having back pain for weeks, dismissing it as long surgery hours catching up with him. When the pain became unbearable and he finally agreed to tests, it was already stage 4. The oncologist, Marcus's colleague and friend, Dr. James Wright, delivered the news with tears in his eyes. 6 to 9 months, he said. "I'm so sorry, Marcus. We can try chemo, but it'll just make me sicker without buying much time," Marcus finished. He was calm, clinical, like he was discussing someone else's case. I wasn't calm. I screamed, I cried, I begged for second opinions, third opinions, experimental treatments, anything. Marcus held me through it all, comforting me about his own death sentence. "We always knew one of us would go first," he said that night in bed. "I'm glad it's me. I couldn't survive losing you." "Don't say that," I sobbed. "We're going to fight this." "No," he said firmly. "We're going to live. Whatever time I have left, we're going to live it. Not spend it in hospitals chasing false hope." I took immediate leave from work. My supervisor didn't even hesitate, just hugged me and told me my job would be waiting whenever I was ready. Those next months became a blur of medications, doctor appointments, and trying to squeeze a lifetime into whatever days we had left. Serena's reaction to Marcus's diagnosis was strange. She cried appropriately when we told her, held me while I sobbed, promised to help however she could. But then she largely disappeared. Her help consisted of occasional text messages asking how we were doing, never following up on my responses. Dylan, however, was a constant presence. The 15-year-old would come over after school, sit with Marcus while I ran errands, or just needed to shower and cry in peace. Marcus taught him chess during those long afternoons, their heads bent over the board, while Marcus explained strategy and life lessons in equal measure. "The Queen is the most powerful piece," Marcus told him once while I cooked dinner nearby. "Always protect your Queen, in chess and in life." "Is Aunt Kendra your Queen?" Dylan asked. "She's my everything," Marcus replied, catching my eye and winking despite the pain I knew he was in. 3 months before Marcus died, he insisted on meeting with his lawyer again. Harrison Blackwell had been Marcus's attorney for years, handling medical malpractice insurance and investment structures. This meeting was different, though. Marcus scheduled it for a day when I had my own doctor's appointment, which I now realize wasn't a coincidence. "What did Harrison want?" I asked when I got home. "Just updating some documents," Marcus said vaguely, "making sure everything is current. The will, among other things. Nothing for you to worry about, sweetheart." But he seemed troubled after that meeting, distracted in a way that went beyond his illness. He'd stare at nothing, lost in thought, then shake himself back to the present when I spoke to him. That's also when Serena started appearing more frequently, but her visits had an agenda. She'd bring papers for Marcus to sign, always medical forms. She said powers of attorney for Dylan's school permission slips for college tours. Marcus would sign them at the kitchen table, his hand shaking from weakness, barely reading what she put in front of him. One time, I walked in on them talking intensely in the living room. Serena was leaning forward, her hand on Marcus's arm, saying, "You promised me. You said you'd take care of it." "I know what I said," Marcus replied wearily. "Everything will be as it should be." "What are you talking about?" I asked. Serena jumped up quickly. "Just discussing Dylan's college fund. Marcus promised to help." "Of course we'll help," I said. "We've always helped with Dylan." Marcus nodded but wouldn't meet my eyes. That should have been my first real warning. The last month was the hardest. Marcus could barely get out of bed, the pain medication making him foggy and confused. Serena visited almost daily, then always with more papers, always when I was busy with Marcus's immediate needs, taking advantage of my distraction. One afternoon, hospice had just left after adjusting his medications, and Serena appeared with another stack of documents. "These need to be signed today," she insisted. "Can't it wait?" I asked. "He just had his meds increased. He's not really coherent." "It's time-sensitive," she said. "For Dylan's school." I was too exhausted to argue, too focused on counting Marcus's breaths, to pay attention to what she was doing. Now I know those papers had nothing to do with Dylan's school. The night Marcus died, it was just us. The hospice nurse had stepped out. Serena was supposedly at work, and Dylan was at a friend's house. Marcus had a moment of clarity, the kind dying people sometimes get, where the fog lifts one last time. "Kendra," he said, his voice stronger than it had been in days. "I need you to forgive me." "For what, my love?" "There's nothing to forgive. There will be. After I'm gone, there will be things. I tried to protect you, but I had to be careful. Just remember, check the date. The date matters." "What date, Marcus? What are you talking about?" But the clarity was already fading, his eyes losing focus. "I love you," he whispered. "Only you. Always only you." Those were his last coherent words. He passed peacefully 3 hours later, his hand in mine, the sunrise painting our bedroom in soft gold light. Serena arrived an hour after he died, though I hadn't called her yet. She said she just knew sisterly intuition. She took charge immediately, calling the funeral home, notifying family, making arrangements. I was too grief-stricken to question why she was so prepared, why she had the funeral director's number already saved in her phone. "Let me handle everything," she said, rubbing my back as I sat numbly beside Marcus's body. "You just grieve. I'll take care of all the details." I should have paid attention to the eager edge in her voice, the way she kept checking her phone, the small smile she tried to hide when she thought I wasn't looking. But I was drowning in loss, unable to see the sharks circling in my own waters. Marcus's funeral was held on a Thursday, 3 days after his death, at St. Catherine's Church, where we'd been married 18 years before. The same stained glass windows that had blessed our beginning now witnessed our ending, casting rainbow patterns across his mahogany casket. Hundreds of people came, colleagues from the hospital, patients whose lives he'd saved, friends from medical school, family from across the country. The church was standing room only, a testament to how many lives Marcus had touched. Serena positioned herself as co-hostess of the funeral, which struck me as odd even through my grief fog. She stood at the church entrance, greeting people like she was the widow, directing them to sign the guest book, accepting condolences with practiced grace. She wore an expensive black dress I'd never seen before, designer shoes that must have cost a month of her usual rent, and jewellery that seemed too elaborate for mourning. "Where did you get that dress?" I asked her before the service started. "I bought it for the funeral," she said, smoothing the fabric. "Marcus would want us to look our best." Marcus had never cared about designer anything, but I was too exhausted to argue. I'd been awake for 72 hours straight, existing on coffee, and the casseroles neighbours kept bringing. During the service, when it came time for eulogies, Dylan gave a speech that broke everyone's hearts, including mine. This sweet boy who'd lost the only father figure he'd ever known stood at the podium in an ill-fitting black suit, trying not to cry. "Uncle Marcus wasn't my real dad," he began, his young voice echoing in the vast church. "But he was the one who taught me to ride a bike, who came to every baseball game even when he was tired from surgery. He helped me with homework I know he thought was easy, but he never made me feel stupid." The congregation was openly weeping. I reached for Serena's hand, but she was strangely composed, almost impatient. Dylan continued. "The last time I saw him clearly before the medicine made him too sleepy, he told me something important. He said I'd always be taken care of, that he'd made sure of it. I didn't understand then, but I think he meant he'd always be watching over me." That's when I noticed Serena's small smile, quick and satisfied, like Dylan had performed his part perfectly in some play I didn't know we were performing. After the service at the reception in the church hall, Harrison Blackwell, Marcus's lawyer, tried several times to approach me. Each time, Serena intercepted him with remarkable efficiency. "Kendra's too fragile right now," I heard her tell him. "Let's schedule something for next week." "It's actually quite urgent," Harrison insisted, looking frustrated. "There are matters about the will that need immediate attention." "Next week," Serena said firmly, actually stepping between us when Harrison tried to push past her. I was greeting Marcus's surgical team and didn't have energy to investigate why my sister was gatekeeping the lawyer. Harrison finally gave up, pressing his business card into my hand when Serena was distracted and whispering, "Call me as soon as possible. It's important." After the reception, family and close friends came back to the house. Marcus's parents, who'd flown in from Florida, were destroyed. His mother, Helen, kept touching things. Marcus had touched his coffee mug still on the counter, his reading glasses on the side table, as if these objects could bring him back. As evening fell and people started leaving, I noticed Serena whispering urgently to Dylan in the corner. "Go pack your things," she said. "But Mum, I don't want to." "Now, Dylan, go pack." "Pack for what?" I asked, confused. "Where is he going?" Serena waited until the last guest left, until it was just us and Dylan, who appeared in the doorway with a duffel bag, looking miserable and scared. "We need to talk," Serena said, her whole demeanour changing. The grieving sister act dropped like a costume she no longer needed. "Can't this wait?" I asked. "I just buried my husband 3 hours ago." "No," she said, pulling a manila folder from her purse. "It can't wait. There are things you need to know about Marcus, about our family, about Dylan." She sat down across from me at the dining room table where Marcus and I had shared thousands of meals, where he'd helped Dylan with countless homework assignments, where we'd celebrated 18 years of birthdays and anniversaries. "Kendra," she began, her voice taking on a formal tone I'd never heard from her before. "There's something Marcus never told you. Something he couldn't tell you." The room suddenly felt cold, despite the warm September evening. Serena placed the manila folder on the table between us, with the kind of ceremony usually reserved for serving legal documents. Her manicured nails, I noticed for the first time, were freshly done in deep burgundy, not the chipped clear polish she usually wore. Everything about her screamed preparation, like she'd been waiting for this moment for a long time. "Kendra," she said, her voice steady and almost sympathetic, like a doctor about to deliver terminal news. "There's something you need to know about Dylan." I looked at my nephew, who was standing in the doorway, clutching his duffel bag, his face pale and confused. He clearly didn't want to be here for whatever was about to happen. "Dylan isn't your nephew," Serena continued. "He's your stepson. Marcus is his biological father." The words hit me like a physical blow. I actually laughed because it was so absurd, so impossible that laughter was the only response that made sense. "That's ridiculous," I said. "Marcus would never—" "We were together when Dylan was conceived." "Were you?" Serena asked, tilting her head. "Think back, Kendra, 16 years ago. The spring of 2008. My mind reeled back. 16 years ago, Marcus and I had been dating for about a year. We were solid, happy, planning our future together. There was no break, no fight that would have sent him to my sister. "You're lying," I said flatly. "I'm not," she replied, opening the folder. "Look at the evidence." She pulled out a photograph first. It was Dylan at his last birthday party, standing next to Marcus, both of them smiling at the camera. She'd circled their faces with red ink. "Look at their eyes," she said. "The same shape. Look at their chins, that little cleft. The way their hair grows at the temple. Dylan is the image of Marcus at 15. I had noticed similarities over the years, but lots of people have brown eyes and strong chins. It didn't mean anything. "That proves nothing," I said. She pulled out bank statements next. "These are transfers from Marcus's personal account to mine, $500 a month for the past 15 years. Why would he give me money every month if Dylan wasn't his?" I looked at the statements. The transfers were real, but I knew about them. Marcus had insisted we help Serena with Dylan's expenses. It was family helping family. "We agreed to help you with Dylan," I said. "That was both of us helping you, not some secret child support." "Then explain this," she said, producing a printed email. It was from Marcus's personal email to hers, dated 3 months ago, right after his diagnosis. The subject line read, "Regarding our discussion." The email said, "Serena, I understand your concerns about Dylan's future. I take full responsibility for my obligations and have made appropriate arrangements. He will be provided for as discussed. Please be patient. Marcus." My hands shook reading it. The language was formal, strange, not how Marcus usually wrote, but it was from his email account. "He's talking about ensuring Dylan's future," Serena said. "His son's future." "Mom, please stop," Dylan said from the doorway, his voice cracking. "This is wrong." "Go wait in the car," Serena snapped at him. "No," I said. "Dylan stays. If you're going to destroy his world with these lies, he should hear it." "They're not lies," Serena said, her composure cracking slightly. "Marcus and it happened before you two were serious. You were on and off in the beginning, you know you were. During one of those off periods, Marcus and I connected. It was just once, but once was enough." "We were never on and off," I said firmly. "From our first date to now, we were never apart." "You blocked it out," she said with fake sympathy. "Trauma does that. Marcus told me you had a fight about his hours, about him prioritizing work. You broke up for 2 weeks. That's when it happened. This was gaslighting of the highest order. There was no break, no fight about work hours. Marcus and I had one of those rare relationships that just worked from the beginning. Even if that were true, which it isn't," I said. "Why wouldn't Marcus tell me? Why keep it secret for 16 years? He was ashamed," Serena said. "He loved you and didn't want to lose you. When I got pregnant, he begged me not to tell you. He said he'd take care of everything financially if I kept quiet. I agreed because I loved you too. I didn't want to destroy your happiness." So you kept this massive secret out of love? I asked sarcastically. Yes, she said, meeting my eyes directly. But now that Marcus is gone, Dylan deserves his birthright. He deserves what his father left him. And there it was. The real reason for this performance. She pulled out another document from her folder. This is Marcus's will, she said. The real one, not the old one you might have seen. He updated it 3 months ago. The document looked official, with a law firm letterhead I didn't recognize. Not Harrison Blackwell's firm, but some attorney named Craig Fulton. I started reading, my heart sinking with each word. According to this will, Dylan Thompson was to receive 60% of all assets, including investment savings and the proceeds from selling Marcus's medical practice. I would keep the house and 40% of remaining assets. But the real kicker was that Serena would serve as trustee of Dylan's inheritance until he turned 25. This can't be real, I said. It's completely legal, Serena said. Marcus signed it 3 months ago. It's notarized, witnessed everything. I looked at the signatures. It did look like Marcus's handwriting, but something was off. The way he signed his M was different, less flourished than usual. But after 8 months of cancer and heavy medications, his handwriting had deteriorated significantly. I want to see the original, I said. This is a certified copy, she replied. The original is filed with the court. Marcus's lawyer is Harrison Blackwell, not this Craig Fulton. Marcus chose a different lawyer for this, Serena explained smoothly. He didn't want Harrison involved because Harrison knows you. He wanted someone impartial. Every answer was so prepared, so rehearsed. She'd thought through every possible objection. So, what now? I asked. You're here to kick me out of my own house. Of course not, Serena said, but her tone suggested otherwise. You can stay in the house, but the liquid assets need to be transferred according to the will. Marcus's practice needs to be valued and sold. Dylan's trust needs to be established. And you control all of that money for the next 10 years, I said. As trustee, yes, it's a big responsibility, but I owe it to Dylan and to Marcus. Dylan suddenly spoke up from the doorway. I don't want it, any of it. Uncle Marcus loved Aunt Kendra. He wouldn't do this. He's not your uncle, Serena said sharply. He's your father, and he absolutely would provide for his son. I need time, I said. I need to verify all of this with lawyers. Of course, Serena said, standing up. Take a few days, but Kendra fighting this will only hurt everyone, especially Dylan. Marcus wanted this. Honor his wishes. She gathered her documents back into the folder, leaving me with just the copy of the will. As she moved toward the door, she turned back one more time. I know this is hard, she said, with false compassion. But imagine how I've felt all these years, watching you have the life that should have been mine, raising my son's father's love, while I struggled alone. At least now, Dylan will have what he deserves. The mask slipped for just a moment, and I saw the real emotion underneath. Not grief, not concern for Dylan, but triumph. Pure, calculating triumph. After they left, I sat alone in my empty house, surrounded by the ghost of my marriage, holding a will that tried to rewrite 18 years of truth. But something Marcus said on his deathbed kept echoing in my mind. Check the date. The date matters. I looked at the will again. It was dated 3 months ago, just after his diagnosis. But what date was I supposed to check? And why did it matter? That's when I decided to fight, not just for the money or the house, but for the truth about my husband, my marriage, and the sister who was trying to steal both from me. The next morning, I woke up with the kind of clarity that comes from rage crystallizing into determination. I called Harrison Blackwell at 7 a.m., not caring if it was too early. Kendra, he answered immediately. Thank God you called. I've been trying to reach you. There are things you need to know about Marcus's will. Serena showed me a will yesterday. Dylan gets 60%. She's the trustee. Harrison was quiet for a long moment. Can you come to my office right now? Bring whatever document she showed you. An hour later, I was sitting in Harrison's downtown office watching his face grow increasingly grim as he read through Serena's will. "This is interesting," he said finally. "Very interesting. Is it real? The notary seal looks authentic. The witnesses. I don't recognize these names, but that doesn't mean anything. But Kendra, this isn't the only will Marcus made." He pulled out a file from his cabinet. "Marcus came to me 6 months ago, right after his diagnosis. He created a standard will, leaving everything to you with a $200,000 education trust for Dylan. That will is properly filed with the probate court." "So which one is valid? The most recent one, typically, but—" Harrison pulled out another document. "Marcus came back to me 3 months ago, the same date as this will Serena has. He didn't create a new will with me, but he added a codicil, an amendment to the existing will." "What kind of amendment?" Harrison smiled slightly. "He added a very specific clause regarding any bequests to Dylan Thompson." He read from the document, "Any inheritance designated for Dylan Thompson is contingent upon DNA confirmation of biological paternity within 30 days of my death. If paternity is not confirmed via certified laboratory testing, all bequests to Dylan Thompson are null and void, and the entire estate passes to my wife, Kendra Patterson." I stared at the paper. Marcus knew Serena would try this. "He suspected something," Harrison said. "He was very specific about this clause. He also told me that if anyone contested the will or claimed Dylan was his biological child, I was to insist on immediate DNA testing. But why didn't he tell me? He said he didn't want to upset you while you were dealing with his illness. He wanted to protect you without burdening you. The date. Check the date." Marcus's final words suddenly made sense. "Can we demand a DNA test?" I asked. "We can and we will," Harrison said. "But there's more you need to know. I did some checking on this Craig Fulton, who supposedly prepared this will. He's a real lawyer, but guess what? He's been dating your sister for the past year." My stomach dropped. "What?" "I have a private investigator I use for cases. I asked him to do a quick background check when I saw this will. Craig Fulton and Serena Thompson have been romantically involved since last summer. There are social media photos, restaurant receipts, even a vacation to Cabo together 6 months ago. So they planned this together." "It appears so, but here's the thing that will really interest you." Harrison pulled out another file. "Marcus asked me to investigate something else 3 months ago. He had me pull his medical records from 20 years ago. Why? Marcus had a vasectomy in 2005, 3 years before he met you. It was successful, confirmed with multiple follow-up tests showing 0 sperm count. He had it done during his residency after a pregnancy scare with a girlfriend. He never had it reversed. The room spun. So he couldn't have children. Biologically impossible," Harrison confirmed. "He knew he couldn't father children when you two were trying. That's why he always blamed himself for your fertility struggles, even though he never told you the real reason." "Why didn't he tell me?" Tears were streaming down my face. I asked him the same thing. He said he was young and stupid when he got the vasectomy, that he regretted it the moment he met you. He was planning to tell you and discuss reversal, but then you started IVF, and when that failed, he said you'd both accepted being childless. He thought telling you then would only cause more pain. I thought about all those nights Marcus held me while I cried about not being able to have children, how he blamed himself, how I assured him it wasn't his fault. The truth was, it was his fault, but not in the way I'd thought. "So Dylan can't be his son," I said. "Not unless Immaculate Conception is real," Harrison replied, "which is why Marcus added that DNA clause. He knew Serena was planning something, probably figured it out when she started having him sign papers. He couldn't confront her directly while sick, so he protected you the only way he could. We need to demand that DNA test immediately." "Already drafting the motion," Harrison said. "But I think you should hire a private investigator to look deeper into Serena's activities. Something tells me this isn't her first attempt at fraud." I agreed and left Harrison's office with renewed purpose. My next stop was the private investigator he recommended, a former detective named Patricia Summers. Patricia was efficient, thorough, and expensive, but within 48 hours, she had uncovered a gold mine of information. Serena owed $300,000 in debts from a failed boutique business, multiple credit cards, and a gambling problem I never knew existed. She'd been evicted from 2 apartments in the past year and was currently living with Craig Fulton. Her financial records showed she was desperate, with creditors calling daily and lawsuits pending. More interesting were the text messages Patricia somehow obtained between Serena and Craig from the past 6 months. They'd been planning this since Marcus's diagnosis, discussing how to forge documents, how to manipulate Marcus into signing things, how to convince me that Dylan was Marcus's son. One text from Craig to Serena read, "The will is perfect. No one will question it with the notary seal I arranged." Another from Serena. "Marcus signed the papers today. He was so drugged he didn't even read them. This is actually going to work." And the most damning from Serena, 3 days before Marcus died. "He's getting worse. Be ready to file the will as soon as he's gone. Kendra will be too grief-stricken to fight it properly." But the biggest revelation came when Patricia investigated Dylan's biological father. Through birth certificate records and some creative investigating, she found him Tom Morrison, Serena's college boyfriend, now married with 3 kids in Portland. He had no idea Dylan existed. "Your sister listed father unknown on the birth certificate," Patricia explained, "but hospital records from the birth show Tom Morrison as her emergency contact. They dated for 2 years in college. The timeline matches perfectly." Armed with this information, I prepared for war. The legal confrontation came swiftly. Harrison filed an emergency motion with the probate court demanding DNA testing before any assets could be distributed. Serena and Craig showed up to the hearing looking confident, probably expecting a grieving widow too broken to fight effectively. Judge Patricia Coleman, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, reviewed both wills with sharp attention. "So we have 2 different wills dated the same day?" she asked. "Your Honor," Craig began smoothly, "our will was properly executed with witnesses and notarization. It clearly states Mr. Patterson's wishes regarding his biological son." "Alleged biological son," Harrison corrected. "My client's will, which was filed with this court 6 months ago, contains a codicil requiring DNA testing for any claims of paternity regarding Dylan Thompson." "I see that," Judge Coleman said, reading the documents. "Mr. Fulton, does your client object to DNA testing?" Craig and Serena exchanged glances. "We feel it's invasive and unnecessary. The will speaks for itself." "The will claims biological paternity," the judge said. "That's a factual claim that can be easily verified. I'm ordering immediate DNA testing. If Dylan Thompson is Marcus Patterson's biological child, the 60% bequest stands. If not, the entire estate goes to Kendra Patterson per the original will's terms." "This is harassment," Serena burst out. "Marcus acknowledged Dylan as his son. We have emails, financial support." "Then you have nothing to worry about from a DNA test," Judge Coleman said coldly. "Testing will be completed within 72 hours at a court-approved facility." As we left the courthouse, Serena grabbed my arm. "Why are you doing this? Dylan deserves something from the man who raised him." "Dylan deserves the truth," I replied, pulling free. "And so do I." The DNA testing was scheduled for the next day. Dylan looked miserable as we sat in the waiting room of the testing facility. I wanted to comfort him, but Serena had positioned herself as a barrier between us. "Aunt Kendra," Dylan said suddenly, ignoring his mother's glare, "I want you to know I didn't know about any of this. Mum told me after Uncle Marcus died that he was my father. I didn't believe her." "Dylan, shut up," Serena hissed. "No, he said, 15 years old but finding his courage. Uncle Marcus loved Aunt Kendra. He talked about her all the time when we played chess. He said she was his guardian angel, that he'd be lost without her. He wouldn't betray her. He was your father, Serena insisted. The DNA will prove it. 72 hours later, we were back in Judge Coleman's courtroom. The DNA results were in a sealed envelope that the judge opened and read silently. Her expression never changed, but I saw her eyes flick to Serena with something like disgust. The results show that Dylan Thompson shares 0% DNA with Marcus Patterson. They are not biologically related. The courtroom was silent for a moment. Then Serena exploded. That's impossible. The test must be wrong. I demand another test. The test was performed by a court-approved facility with chain of custody maintained throughout, Judge Coleman said. The results are conclusive. But the resemblance, Serena sputtered. They looked alike. Lots of people share similar features, the judge replied. Mr. Fulton, do you have anything to add? Craig was already packing his briefcase, distancing himself from Serena literally and figuratively. No, Your Honor. Then I rule that the entire estate of Marcus Patterson passes to his legal widow, Kendra Patterson, as specified in his legal will. The document presented by Ms. Thompson appears to be fraudulent. I'm referring this matter to the District Attorney for investigation of potential fraud and forgery. Serena turned to me, her face twisted with rage. You did this. You turned Marcus against his own son. Marcus had a vasectomy 20 years ago, I said quietly. He couldn't have children. He knew you were lying and he protected me the only way he could. The colour drained from Serena's face. That's not true. Harrison stood up. I have the medical records here if the court would like to review them. That won't be necessary for this proceeding, Judge Coleman said, but I'm sure the district attorney will be very interested. As we left the courtroom, Dylan broke away from his mother and ran to me. Aunt Kendra, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I held him as he cried. None of this is your fault, sweetheart. None of it. What's going to happen to me? He asked through his tears. That's when Tom Morrison walked into the courthouse. Patricia had contacted him, told him about Dylan, and he'd flown in from Portland immediately. Dylan, he said hesitantly. Dylan looked at this stranger, his actual father, with confusion and fear. The resemblance now that I knew to look for it was unmistakable. The same tall frame, the same sandy brown hair, the same green eyes that neither Marcus nor Serena had. I'm Tom, he said gently. I think I'm your father. The reunion was awkward, painful, and complicated by 16 years of lies. But Tom was a good man, shocked by Serena's deception, but determined to do right by his son. The criminal charges came 2 weeks later. Serena was arrested for forgery, fraud, and attempted theft of an estate. Craig was charged as an accomplice and immediately disbarred pending trial. The investigation revealed they'd forged Marcus's signature on multiple documents, created false emails using a spoofed account, and even attempted to access Marcus's bank accounts before his death. Serena's bail was set at $50,000, which she couldn't pay. She called me from jail not to apologize, but to rage. You've ruined everything, she screamed. Dylan was supposed to be set for life. We were supposed to be family. We were family, I replied, until you decided money was more important than truth. She pleaded guilty 6 months later to avoid a longer sentence. 2 years probation, 6 months house arrest, and restitution she'll never be able to pay. She lost custody of Dylan, who went to live with Tom and his family in Portland, though I remained a significant part of his life. 1 year has passed since that horrible day when Serena tried to steal my husband's legacy with her elaborate lie. The truth about Marcus, about our marriage, about the depth of his love and protection has only grown clearer with time. A month after the court ruling, Harrison gave me a sealed letter Marcus had written for me, with instructions to give it to me only after everything was resolved. My dearest Kendra, it began in his shaky handwriting. If you're reading this, then Serena attempted what I suspected she would, and you discovered the truth. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you directly. I was too weak, too sick, and too afraid of causing you more pain during my final days. 3 months ago, Serena came to me with a proposition. She said she would claim Dylan was my son after I died, that she had fabricated evidence, and that if I didn't change my will, she would tell you during my illness that I'd had an affair with her. She thought the threat would make me comply. I knew immediately it was a lie because of my vasectomy, which I shamefully never told you about. I should have told you years ago when we were trying for children. My cowardice in hiding that truth led to this situation, and I'm deeply sorry. I pretended to go along with her plan while secretly protecting you. I had her boyfriend Craig draft a will, knowing it would be fraudulent. I added the DNA clause to my real will, knowing it would expose her lies. I couldn't fight her directly in my condition, but I could ensure she wouldn't succeed. Please forgive me for the vasectomy, for not telling you why we couldn't have children. You were always more than enough for me, and my greatest regret is that my cowardice about this medical truth caused you pain. All my love, always and forever, Marcus P.S. The date matters because that's when I filed the codicil. I knew Serena would claim the will was from that date, but mine was filed first, making it the valid one. I cried reading his letter, not from pain, but from the profound love it revealed. Even dying, even weak and vulnerable Marcus had protected me. He'd played chess with my sister and won, ensuring her greed couldn't touch what we'd built together. Dylan visits me regularly from Portland. Tom and his wife Grace have been incredibly generous, understanding that Dylan needs to maintain connections with the only family he knew for 15 years. He's in therapy, working through the trauma of discovering his entire identity was based on lies. Last week, he came for Marcus's death anniversary. We visited the grave together, and Dylan left a chess piece, a queen, on the headstone. For protecting Aunt Kendra, he explained. Uncle Marcus said the queen was the most important piece. He wasn't your biological father, I said gently. You know that now. He was my father in every way that mattered, Dylan replied. Biology doesn't make a father. Love does. He loved me, taught me, showed up for me. That's what fathers do. This child who'd been used as a weapon in his mother's scheme had more wisdom and grace than the woman who bore him. Serena completed her house arrest 2 months ago. She moved to Arizona claiming she needed a fresh start. She sent one letter, not of apology, but of justification, explaining how hard her life had been, how unfair it was that I had everything while she struggled. I didn't reply. There was nothing to say to someone who viewed love as a commodity and family as a means to an end. The house feels different now, lighter somehow. I've returned to work part-time, finding comfort in the routine of caring for others. Harrison helped me establish a scholarship in Marcus's name at the medical school specifically for students interested in cardiothoracic surgery. I also used part of the inheritance to set up a trust for Dylan, not because I had to, but because Marcus would have wanted it. He loved that boy regardless of biology, and that love deserved to be honoured. Craig Fulton was disbarred and left the state. Last I heard, he was selling insurance in Nevada. The man who helped orchestrate this cruel scheme lost everything, just as he'd hoped I would. Sometimes I think about the what-ifs. What if Marcus had told me about the vasectomy? What if Serena hadn't let greed consume her? What if I hadn't fought back? But those thoughts lead nowhere productive. The truth is, Marcus and I had 18 beautiful years together. Not perfect years, but real ones filled with genuine love and partnership. Serena's lies couldn't retroactively poison that love, couldn't make it less real or valuable. Last month, I finally cleaned out Marcus's home office, something I'd been avoiding. In his desk drawer, I found a small notebook where he'd written thoughts during his illness. One entry dated the day before he died simply said, "Kendra will be okay. She's stronger than she knows. She'll discover the truth and survive it because that's who she is. My queen always protecting the king, even when he can't protect himself." He was right. I did survive it, not just survived, but emerged stronger, clearer about what matters and what doesn't. Money doesn't matter as much as truth. Blood doesn't matter as much as love. And family isn't about DNA or inheritance. It's about who shows up, who stays loyal, who chooses love over greed. My sister thought she could steal my husband's legacy by claiming his child. She didn't understand that Marcus's true legacy wasn't money or property. It was the love he showed, the lives he saved, the boy he helped raise, regardless of biology, and the wife he protected, even in death. That's a legacy that can't be stolen, forged, or faked. It lives in every patient whose heart still beats because of Marcus's skilled hands, in Dylan's integrity, despite his mother's lies, and in my determination to honor truth over comfortable deceptions. Serena may have lost everything in her attempt to take everything, but in a strange way, she gave me something precious, the absolute certainty that my husband loved me completely, that our marriage was real and strong, and that even death couldn't stop him from protecting me one last time. The date mattered just like Marcus said, but what mattered more was the love that made him think 3 moves ahead even while dying to ensure that greed wouldn't triumph over truth. That's my story. The story of how my sister tried to steal my husband's legacy with a lie that she never imagined he'd already exposed. She thought grief would make me weak, that I'd accept her deception rather than face an ugly fight. She was wrong about everything, especially about Marcus, who loved me enough to protect me from beyond the grave. Thank you for listening to every word. If you've faced betrayal from family or struggled with inheritance disputes, please share your story in the comments. Your experiences matter and could help someone else going through similar pain. Hit that like button. If you believe truth always finds a way to surface, subscribe for more stories about justice, prevailing over deception, and share this with anyone who needs to know that protecting yourself from toxic family isn't wrong, it's necessary. Remember that love isn't measured in DNA or dollars, but in actions and choices. The people who truly love you will protect you even when it costs them, even when you don't know they're doing it. Don't let anyone use your grief or trust against you. Stand firm in your truth, demand proof of claims, and never apologize for protecting what's rightfully yours. Until next time, this is Kendra reminding you that sometimes the greatest gift someone can leave you isn't money or property, but the tools to defend yourself against those who would harm you. Stay strong, trust your instincts, and always check the date.